We have a monitor from Cooler Master, and this monitor is actually not new. It has been in the market for more than a year, but there are a lot of different updates throughout this whole year. So our version here is updated to the latest firmware, and we are reviewing it from that perspective. A quick introduction for this monitor. This is the Cooler Master Tempus GP27Q, and there is another GP27U in the market as well. Q means that it is Quad HD, that means 2560 by 1440 pixels in resolution, whereby the U variant stands for Ultra HD, and that means 4K. Essentially, that's the only difference on paper, but of course there are many different factors as well, which we don't have the unit to test, so we're only focusing on the GP27Q. Anyway, for this monitor, it's a 27-inch monitor with 1440p resolution with the standard 16:9 aspect ratio, and also goes up to 165Hz refresh rate. It has a quantum dot backlighting with an IPS LCD panel, so that means we have a lot of things to talk about. Firstly, the color accuracy. Just using everything at its default settings, it can cover 99.48% of sRGB and 96.44% of DCI-P3 color gamuts. The average and maximum delta E numbers are really low, and I'm really impressed by what this monitor can do. As a side note, since it has such a high coverage for DCI-P3 color gamut, that means the colors will look very vivid. You may or may not like this, so feel free to tune it however you want to. As for the maximum brightness, there are two that we have tested. In SDR mode, it can reach around 650 nits, which is higher than what was advertised on Cooler Master's website. And if we turn on HDR, the maximum brightness is hitting nearly 1000 nits, which is actually lower than what Cooler Master listed on their website. Still, the maximum brightness of both SDR and HDR are great. Cooler Master also claims that this monitor has 576 mini LED zones. In other words, it just means 576 dimming zones. From our tests that you can see on the screen here, the dimming zones are really good. There are no obvious dark spots on the moving shape, and there is no prominent halo effect or distracting ghosting effects. The uniformity is just really good across the board. Now let's take a look at the OSD menu. There are a lot of options to tune, but I want to highlight a few of them here. The pixel response time is a weird one though. You see, there is an option called Overdrive in the OSD menu, and there are multiple levels to select from. If we just disable the option and then compare it with it turning on to the maximum, the UFO looks the same to my eyes. Yeah, and then there's also the option to enable MPRT as well. It's another name for black frame insertion, which mitigates motion blur due to pixel response time. But that also cuts your maximum brightness in half. But again, I don't notice any difference, so I'll just leave MPRT disabled. We also have the option to turn on Adaptive Sync, and I highly recommend you to do so. This monitor is FreeSync and G-Sync compatible, so you can already eliminate screen tearing by just enabling that option. The ports on this monitor is actually quite unexpected. All the ports are as shown on the screen right now, and what interests me the most is the presence of a USB-C port. If you've paid attention to the OSD menu shown earlier, then you might have already seen the KVM feature. Yes, we can just connect one single cable from the monitor to a laptop or maybe the ROG Ally or your phone, whatever, and then we can quote-unquote transfer all of the USB devices to the laptop, including display and also up to 90 watts of USB PD charging as well. That means one cable can handle everything. If we also have an audio device connected to the 3.5mm audio jack, then that will transfer to your device as well through that one single cable. I honestly didn't expect this monitor to have KVM functionality, but hey, there you go. If you want to learn more about KVMs, then I'll leave you a link to our other video down in the description, and it's a guide to learn more about KVMs from start to finish. And I think more monitors should have this feature. One of those USB-A ports at the back of this monitor is used for firmware updates, as it brings forth better HDR experience and fix some bugs and whatnot. I have personally experienced some KVM firmwares that were quite buggy at first, but firmware updates fixed it up, so do update your monitor's firmware. It's just a bit confusing here since there are different regions that use different firmware versions for this monitor in particular. So you have to be careful what hardware version that you have before downloading and updating your monitor's firmware. As for the monitor stand, this is a rather simple one. It's a bit too simple, honestly. It has all of the basic premium monitor stand features. So you have height adjustment, tilt adjustment, swivel, and also pivot. I'm not really a fan of the base either because it's a kind of a waste of space. I mean, it's a good spot if you want to put a laptop there if we're using KVM feature, but otherwise it's a bit too big and takes up a lot of space. However, this monitor also lacks any form of cable management. There is only a single tiny piece of plastic ring at the back, at the neck of this monitor for cables to pass through, and that's it. That's your only cable management feature available on this monitor stand. But then again, this monitor does have the standard support for 100 by 100mm VESA mount, so you can change it to whatever monitor arm that you want. We will also need to find a dedicated place to hide the monitor's power supply since it is using an external power supply, and we just left it on the table because this setup isn't made to hide that power supply easily. And finally, for the price of 1,699 ringgit or somewhere around 550 US dollars, this is actually quite a reasonable price considering all of the features that it has. Great brightness and great uniformity thanks to the many dimming zones on this monitor, great pixel response time, and there's also KVM, which is truly unexpected. I just wish that for this monitor, there are more USB ports so that we can take more advantage of the KVM feature, because for me personally, I do use a KVM monitor at home. What I do is to connect my microphone, keyboard, mouse, a lot more stuff to my monitor, and then I just switch between my desktop and my laptop with a press of a button. That is the beauty of KVM. And again, if you want to know more about KVMs, we'll have a video linked down in the description below. And do let me know, what do you think about this monitor? I've also seen horror stories of this monitor here on Reddit, but I have not experienced any of them. So yeah, honestly, this monitor has been great throughout my entire usage of like 1 or 2 months. So yeah, if you have any questions, then leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.